have a beautiful string piece here, but it's sounding a little dry. So I need to add some reverb to it to make it seem like it's taking place in a room. Now, so far, all we've talked about are insert effects. That means that they are inserted after a device, typically an instrument, and the sound from that instrument, 100% of the sound, goes through the effect, and then that effect goes to our mixer. But there are other effects called send effects, and we can send portions of our sound to those effects. The way we do that is by adding them to our mixer, and Reason supports up to 4 auxiliary sends and returns. The other advantage of auxiliary sends and returns is that we don't have to create a reverb for every single device. We just create one and send different amounts of our sounds to that reverb. So to do that, we select the mixer and create a reverb. Let's pick a sound here, or a patch. That's good right there, the orchestra plate. Now, if we look at our rack, we can see that it's been cabled to the auxiliary inputs. And there it is right there. In fact, let's rename it orchestra plate. And now what we're going to do is use the 4 auxiliary knobs above each one of the channels to send different amounts of our sound to that orchestra plate. And the knob right above the orchestra plate, the return, is like a volume control for the reverb. I can determine how much of the overall reverb goes to my master channel. So let's add a little reverb for the cellos. No reverb. I'm mixing in all of the reverb there. Let's add a little for the violins. You can hear the reverb. Watch when I bypass. Now it's dry, and now we're hearing a little bit of the reverb. We always want the dry-wet control on our auxiliary effects to be 100% wet, since we're determining how much sound gets sent to it from the mixer, not from the effect itself. Okay, let's add a little reverb for our string section. So I've used a reverb as an auxiliary send, and I've sent different amounts of my 3 instruments to that send. Now the 4th auxiliary send is special. There's a little P button next to it, and that stands for pre-fader or pre-send. That means that the sound will be sent to the effect before it hits the volume fader. So let me show you what that means. I'm going to add something pretty drastic here. Let's put a phaser on. Now, Reason added it as the 2nd auxiliary send, but I want it to be the 4th so I can use my pre-fader button. So I'll just drag the cables over. Great, and now it's the 4th send. Now, just like the reverb, I can determine how much of each of my sounds, each one of my channels, goes to the phaser. But because there's the P there, I can send some of the sound before the fader. Watch what happens here. I'm going to lower the strings. Actually, let me solo that. And here's just the strings. My phaser knob is all the way down. Now let's add in some phaser, and let's bring the string volume all the way down. And all we're hearing is the phaser sound, almost like an insert effect, in that we're hearing none of the string sound without the effect. Let's bring in some of the unaffected sound. Now if I turn off that P, when I change my volume fader, it will affect the phaser as well. So the pre-fader button is useful when you want to control the volume of the effect separately from the volume of the unaffected sound. But the pre-fader button is only on the fourth auxiliary send. The other sends are always affected by the channel fader.